abandonment of America is something led by the corporations. Mr. Trump likes to point to the Chinese, but they didn't do it. They couldn't make the corporations go there. Those corporations went there because it was profitable. Here's my fear. The United States' mass of working class people are being prepared to function the way the poor of the rest of the world function. They are the backwater. They are the hinterland. They're what you see when you leave the capital city and you go to where the mass of people are much, much poorer. Also remember that every single empire that the world has ever seen, British, French, German, Dutch, Russian, Greek, Roman, it doesn't matter. They all went up and then they all went down.
Right.
The American empire, built up after World War II, went up, so it was only a question of when would it go down.
Well,
now, here comes the first reality that was nowhere in sight on the inauguration. What are we as a nation going to do? How are we going to go through a declining empire? And lest anyone have a doubt, we are declining. The United States now, the dollar is less and less a global currency. A few years ago, central banks around the world kept 80% of their reserves in the dollar. It was considered as good as gold or maybe better. Now that number is about 40%. Dollar is still important, but nothing like it was. Let me give you another example. These are big numbers everybody knows. The United States has a group of 7 nations, of which it is one, called the G7, the group of 7. The United States, Canada, Japan, Britain, France, Germany, and Italy. That used to be the powerhouse core of the economy of the world. The United States has the big one in the middle, and then the other 6 as its allies. Well, let's look at it today. If you add them all up, they together, all of them, U.S. and the other 6, produce about 26-27% of the world's output. But there's another group that has emerged. It's called the BRICS, B-R-I-C-S. That stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And the original 5, they started about 15 years ago. Now they are 22 countries. Now let me tell you very briefly about them. If you add up all the goods and services they produce in the year, the way I just did for the G7, the total portion of world output that they account for is about 35%. Let me remind you, the U.S. and its allies account for 27% of world output. BRICS, China and its allies, account for more, much more.
Okay.
They're an alternative pole in the world economy. That is the more enormous reality about our economy than anything else.
But that brings up a great question, Dr. Wolfe. When I was listening to you, I was thinking about this. And yet, our economy is not producing as much or not growing in the way you're talking about the other economies, but we have more billionaires than any other economy. I mean, what does that say about the way our economy operates, that even when we're declining, there are a smaller and smaller group of people becoming wealthier and wealthier and wealthier and wealthier? How are those two? Those seem contradictory to me. How do we reconcile that?
Not at all, because it's exactly what happened in every other economy, every other empire. The people, and it's easy to understand why.
Okay.
When an economy is going up, the people at the top can afford to be generous. They're making a ton of money. They're becoming wealthy. Sure, they can pay an extra 4 or 5% a year to their workers. Keep them happy, avoid a strike, and there's so much money in the growth period that you can afford it. But when the economy goes down, what the people at the top have always done and are doing now in America is those at the top, the CEOs, the people who, we all know who they are, they use their wealth and power, shouldn't surprise you, to hold on. And because they have wealth and power, they can do that. They can hold on, which means the costs of the downturn, we, the rest of us, it's offloaded onto us. So what you're seeing is that the inequality in the United States gets worse. And look at the irony. I'll give you a statistic earlier this week. The most important research outfit in the world, Oxfam, located in Britain, keeps track of this, gave their annual report. And it added up the experience of the roughly 3,000 billionaires that exist in the world today. And as you rightly said, many of them are American. Not all by a long shot, but many of them. Here's the statistic it gave. Across the year 2024 just ended, the collective wealth of the 300 billionaires rose by over $6 billion per day.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's incredible.
Okay, so look what I'm telling
incredible.
you. Capitalism as a global system is making those already super wealthy even more super wealthy.
Right, but what's amazing about it, extraordinary, is that you're saying as our economy declines, as working class people's lives gets worse, their wealth gets more concentrated and higher. I mean, that's like really seems to me a horrible prescription for people.
Unfortunately, if we had better leaders, they would be talking to us about it. What are we going to do as a nation? The road we are on of a declining empire becoming more and more unequal. Look, you don't need rocket science to understand that's not sustainable. That situation is going to blow up, and it's not going to be pretty. Not even in a country that didn't have everybody with a gun.